Sources offered minimal pushback on Garoppolo value angle. They see how Washington could improve with him under center, assuming Scott Turner's game plan plays to his strengths, namely the underneath passing game. One executive positively labeled Garoppolo a quote-unquote functional starter, a level he says doesn't apply for several players who started games in 2021, like Taylor Heineke and perhaps all of the 2022 QB draft prospects. The executive doesn't think Garoppolo's worth the 11th selection or any first-round pick based on his skill set and injury history. Yet, he argued the Commanders could justify sending the pick to San Francisco should they concede none of the incoming passers are worthy of the 11th pick. For a team that needs to win now, the veteran here trumps the unproven rookies. However, sources cautioned at investing heavily in terms of draft picks and cash for a player who's been unable to stay healthy. This is where having Heineke would help, or could lead Washington to draft a quarterback on day 2 of the NFL draft, second round. So that's the story. All of the Jimmy 11th pick value came from that place.
I think it's just basic supply demand. You just have to put it into economic circumstance. Jimmy's value in a vacuum is not worth a first-round pick. Every single human being would agree to that, not with the last name Garoppolo. But even the 49ers, John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, Parag, Jed, over cocktails, of course he's not. That's not the way the world works, though. And, quarterbacks, if you were going to compare them to like real estate, they would be real estate in the Bay Area, Manhattan, or Los Angeles, not the flyover states. So you are paying a premium on something that is just a couple rooms, a bathroom. That it's just an arbitrary value. What are other people willing to pay? And here the key is, why is value so high in some of these major places? Because a lot of people are lined up to buy it. So it drives the price up. Well, there are several teams that need quarterbacks. Now, the fucking oceanfront property is Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson. So if those guys are truly available, and it feels like Aaron Rodgers is just already set on his destination. If Russell, Deshaun, obviously those players are dramatically better than Jimmy Garoppolo. And the people that would be interested in Jimmy Garoppolo will focus on them first. So his price is it's kind of irrelevant until, is there one team that gets left out of the quarterback market and they have to quote unquote overpay? Because if that's the case, that drives up the price. Now, the 11th pick to me seems insane. I would say if they did that, that would be the greatest trade in the history of trades, right? I mean, honestly, I'd be at a loss.
Maybe one of them. The Wentz trades is pretty good.
True, but there were contingencies to that one. You could argue Carson Wentz went for pick 16, though. Is Carson Wentz a better player than Jimmy Garoppolo?
Once upon a time, I would not have hesitated. And said,
we saw them both play. He outplayed him, right?
Yeah, he's more talented than him.
I'm saying we saw them play in the same game, and Carson was a better player, right?
Yeah, he's definitely more talented than Jimmy. Would I rather have him on my team for the next 3 years? I used to not even think that was a question. I don't think I'm winning much with either one of them as my centerpiece quarterback. But, yeah, regardless, it's – go ahead.
The 49ers last year, and we kind of laughed, were adamant they weren't giving up Jimmy Garoppolo once they traded Trey Lance. And at the time, there were a lot of different opinions because it was kind of crazy given what they'd just given up for Trey, which the biggest trade in the history of the franchise. And it's probably just, if we just got time will tell what those picks equal, right? It was the 12th pick. This year, what are they drafting? 28th. And then next year, wherever it goes, it actually could turn out to not be as crazy as like 2 picks that ended up like 7th and 10th, right? On the value chart. You just got to let it all kind of play out to see what it actually equals. But they gave up 3 first-round picks, 12th and then 2 more, and a 3rd, right? They gave up a shitload. But they, this is where I do give them credit. They viewed this guy even more than us on the outside as like a major project. And then I've agreed once I saw the guy play. But at the time, I was like, fucking go all in. Put all your chips in the middle of the table. And they didn't. Because they were saying, you can get Jimmy Garoppolo, but it would take a first. And clearly no one was giving him a first off a 10-game 2020 season where he was injured. And then you'd say this season, while very rocky and was a roller coaster ride, there is stuff that Jimmy brings to the table that can't really be debated. If you think your team is talented around him, you can go to the playoffs. And what do all teams want to do? Obviously win the Super Bowl. But let's face it, most teams aren't winning the Super Bowl. Like, the Bengals hadn't been to a Super Bowl in 30-plus years, and they've had really good teams the last couple decades. Like, if you just go to the playoffs, it's a big deal. The Raiders just getting to the playoffs was a big fucking deal. And to me, that's a big reason I think that, like, Ziegler and Josh are like, it's legitimate franchise. Just they got a team that can compete to go to the playoffs, right? Well, to me, if you have a playoff team and you can't get a Russell, you can't get a Deshaun, assuming the Deshaun thing's a little, some teams, you saw John Morrow's like, we're not interested. Like, some teams will just be out. Like, we're not even fucking dealing with it. Now, some teams might say that and change their opinion if it all goes away. But Jimmy, to me, will have a lot of interest from the teams that view themselves like if we just get solid quarterback play, which Jimmy can be, 14 to 17 kind of range in the league, we'll go to the playoffs. Going to the playoffs gets people contract extensions, right?
Yeah, I think the risk is not that Jimmy Garoppolo is not a good enough player if you were to trade the 11th pick for him or whatever you trade for him. The risk is that he might not be available for all of your games, right? That's the one that I think really bites you, because I don't think there's much question about what you're getting as a player. You're getting some highs, you're getting some lows. It's going to be a little wild. You don't know what you're getting from it. Like, a quarterback who gets hurt torpedoes your entire season. A quarterback who's up and down, if you've got a good defense and a run game and you can outcoach and your division and blah, 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 you can ride a roller coaster and look up and have 10 wins. Like, right? So the 49ers just did it. So it's the injury. Now, I'm not saying you would be getting the 11th pick for him anyway, but I think, you talked about how desperate is a team in the context of the kind of the economy of the trade market. It's also about what that team is going through. Ron Rivera is coming into year 3 in Washington. The football team has not won 10 football games in a season since 2012, and that's the only time they've done it since 2006, and they've only done it 3 times since 1992. 3 times since 1992, the football team / the Commanders has won 10 games in an NFL's regular season. Okay?
God, they sucked for a long time.
They have only been in 4 postseason games since 2005. They've all been wild card game weekends losses. Okay? They have not won a playoff game since they won the Super Bowl in 1991. So when you say
Sean McVay won 4 playoff games this year.
He's won 7 in 5 years, 4 this year. So when you say 11 is too rich, I agree. I think we all agree. I think even if you read the quote from the executive, that person is not saying they should trade the 11th pick. What that person is saying is, I can see how you can arrive at a place where if you start your postseason, let's say we all get together, we have a discussion. What do we need? We have to get a quarterback. All right, everybody, no wrong answers. I'll get up on the dry erase board. Let's brainstorm all the ways we can get a quarterback. All right, let's do it. And you start making the list. You're like Deshaun, and we draft a guy in the first round, Desmond Ridder. Maybe we draft him 11th. Is he ready for us to win? Right? You just start going down the list, and you go, well, I think Jimmy Garoppolo is our best option. I can see how they would arrive at that place. Now, it's also a game of chess, or a game of poker is the better way to put it. Is somebody offering the 49ers a second-round pick? Is somebody else offering them a first-round pick? Is somebody offering them a third-round pick? Like, it may not take that. But this person's just saying, I can see how you arrive at this place. And so can I. Because I think organizationally, they are thirsty. Well, they are dying in the desert right now.
Factor this in, Guy. Their head coach just turned 60 years old. I wouldn't call him a spring chicken. He also overcame cancer within the last 18 months. So when you just look at his shelf life in terms of like patience, I think he's been open about this before. Like, I'm not a patient person. Like, Ron Rivera ain't in this for like a 7-year rebuild. He is going to try to make the playoffs next season. And here's the other thing he's going to know he's going to need is, just using him as an example, is one, my division, the Cowboys, they're a flawed playoff team, but they're going to compete to win 10 games, right? To me, they feel like a 10-game lock. And the Eagles got 3 first-round picks. So even if they don't add Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson, even with Jalen, you just add an influx of talent. Like, fuck, they're going to win a 9 or 10 games. So how do I compete? How do I compete with those two franchises if I do not improve my quarterback standing? And that goes to where, back to the house analogy, sometimes if it's worth it to you, it doesn't matter that you're overpaying. Because ultimately, like a house, you need somewhere to live. Like you have to have someone to play quarterback. I can overcome a bad right tackle. The Bengals did all season long. They got to the Super Bowl. I can overcome fucking Eli Apple or, some random
Everybody hates
corner.
all of a sudden.
Well, I think he talks a lot of shit on social media. And I think on the field too, but you can overcome you cannot overcome no quarterback. It is literally impossible. Maybe you could when Ron Rivera was playing for like the Bears in the mid-'80s. It's like, we got Walter and we got all the boys on D, led by Buddy Ryan. Like, those days are over. Now you don't even necessarily have to have Joe Burrow, but you better have a top 15 quarterback to even have a chance. And you'd say, listen, Heineke's a talented backup. If he's your full-time starter, which he was for them this season, it's just not possible. It's the knock on like Gardner Minshew, who I think a lot of people kind of like. If Gardner Minshew is your full-time starter for a season, like, I would bet against you making the playoffs.
Yeah, I think where you are in kind of your team's arc, their development affects how much you like a particular quarterback. If your team won no games last year, then, or your coach maybe, then maybe you're willing to give Gardner Minshew 5 weeks. But Washington football team's not in that position anymore. They have been so close, and they clearly have had a quarterback weak link.
To me, the negotiation where I would struggle with Jimmy just in the first round would be, like you said, the durability. Because one thing Carson had last year when he was on the market, he had been healthy for 2 straight seasons. He had played 16 games, and remember, he got KO'd. He got a concussion, which I view that as a little random. It's not like a knee injury or an elbow injury or something. And then the following season, he just got benched, but he had played in all the games. So he had back-to-back seasons where he did not miss a game, besides getting the concussion in the playoff game, which even other coaches and exec is a freaky deal, right? I mean, we saw Bosa got, just it could happen to any player, any moment, any game. Hell, Cooper Kupp might have got one. He just kept on playing. They don't. I saw someone was like, "No concussion protocol in the Super Bowl."
Yeah,
like,
I saw a doctor on the internet. It's like this is called the Julian Edelman rule.
Yeah, they just fucking go out. They leave that doc.
No, I'm good.
Where's the independent neurologist? Oh, he's up in the suite.
He's locked in a bathroom.
So
he's like the pitching coach from Major. Was the Cubs with the kid with the arm for the Cubs? Rookie of the year,
little big league. Oh, yeah.
Rookie of the year, and he like locks the pitching coach.
Yeah,
gets locked in the anyway.
Little big league is when he's the manager, right?
Little big league is when he's the manager of the Twins. Yeah, Rookie of the year is Rowan Gartner.
Would you say Little Big League? I mean, in the history, I enjoy the movie. One of the most unrealistic movies in the history of mankind.
Extremely unrealistic. I've watched it many times as a kid.
What's better, Little Big League or Rookie of the Year?
I think Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I tend to agree.
So
yeah, I mean, Jimmy's got some warts, which I think will ultimately, even if the Niners maximize a pick in the top 32, I just do not see happening. Do you?
No. No.
But I do see a trade whenever Schefter breaks it, and I promise you, Schefter's breaking this story. People will be like, I can't believe they just got that for Jimmy Garoppolo. Assuming that like every quarterback on the move just doesn't like, if Russell stays, like that is a legitimate non-mover, right? And the Deshaun, I mean, I've been hearing like, we just got to figure out his legalities for fucking 8 months now.
He's just going to be flapping in the wind.
And Rodgers, it just feels like the destination is set, right?
Denver, yeah. Yeah. Now, I think your reaction, though, let's establish what that reaction would be. I think that to get the reaction you're talking about where people are blown away, would that be a second? I think a third.
I would say like they got a second and a conditional third the following year or something.
See, I think even a second round pick, people would go, whoa. You don't think so?
I do. I just think these quarterbacks,
I agree with you.
Like the contract they get, I just wonder if it's going to be more in a second. Maybe it's a second and a fourth or something, but people are going to be like, you're right. The second is going to be the headliner. That's all anyone cares about. But I think it'll be more than that. And I think that's kind of crazy, but I also completely understand it. You want to talk about it? Because there's two teams, and we already talked about one, but I mean, the other team that is just 100%, and they're in a different world than the football team / Commanders. I hate that we got to stop saying football team. I'm with you.
We don't have to do anything. Keep saying it.
Yeah, the football team, we don't know the football team can do anything, right? They might just be consistently keep losing. I like Ron, Bay Area guy, tough guy, Cal guy, stud. Everyone, as we're recording this, I think he's speaking tonight at John Madden's thing. Like he's beloved. Everyone, the respect. But let's face it, as a coach, and this guy can be a flawed player, but they drafted Cam Newton #1 overall. The guy became a superstar, and they had success with Cam Newton and went to the playoffs. Without Cam Newton, Ron Rivera has been a below-average coach because he's not a schemer, right? He's not an offensive coordinator. He's not even the defensive coordinator. He's like the CEO guy. Well, to be a good CEO guy, you need Roethlisberger or Lamar Jackson because if you don't have those guys, most CEO guys without good quarterbacks are unemployed CEO coaches. That's just the way it works. So to me, the team that makes the most sense is the team that knows how to win. And I think they've had two of the back-to-back more impressive, you could argue like 3 straight years of just, how do these guys keep doing it? Is the Steelers. When they traded a 1 for Minkah Fitzpatrick, I remember thinking, Roethlisberger just is like Matt Cain, tore his elbow, and you got no quarterback. What are you guys doing? And then the dust settled. They went 8-8 that season with Duck and Rudolph, and they have one of the best DBs in the league on their team. And the next couple years, they went 500. Somehow they made the playoffs this year because of the Jaguars beating the Colts at the end of the season, the Raiders winning that game. What Tomlin has accomplished the last 3 years with the quarterback play, if he had Jimmy Garoppolo, they are a game or two better. Like they're winning 10, 11 games. Their quarterback play at moments this season, when you're sitting on your couch, Sunday morning and the Steelers game's on against some random team at that, like the 10-1 slot, and you'll just flip it on at like 11. It's like, what are they doing on offense? What is going on? Don't they make the most sense for a team that, to me, if they could get Rodgers or Russell, of course.
Yeah.
The Deshaun, I don't know. The Rooneys, who knows?
It's just hard to put Deshaun in any of these conversations. I think Denver would make a lot of sense also if Aaron Rodgers weren't going there. I think they'd be in a similar boat. But, yeah, I mean, here's the thing with the Steelers. We don't quite know what their thing is right now because Kevin Colbert, their GM, is gone, right?
No, but they're letting him work through the season.
So they're going to let him make this trade? Well, he once traded a 4th for Vance McDonald and a 5th, right? They don't do – Minkah was an outlier move for the Steelers. They don't do a lot of that, right? They have not historically been the Rams.
You're saying they're not really wheeling and dealing like Roseman and Les Snead.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just looking at their trade history. Minkah by far and away is the most dramatic trade they made. Like they sent AB away for a 3rd and a 5th. They moved up.
Just throwing their trash away, right?
Well, the same thing with Martavius Bryant. Remember when they got a 3rd for him? One of the all-time. You said one of the worst trades, some of the greatest trades in history. That was a pretty good one for the Steelers. But it's not.
Was that a John Gruden special?
That was. A 6th for Justin Gilbert, who once upon a time was highly drafted. A Josh Scobie pick. Brandon Boykin.
But they clearly have a lot of talent on their team, and they don't have a quarterback.
And they're not Washington football team, right? Going 5 years without making the playoffs is not acceptable.
It's not. Would you even say, is this year truly acceptable to them, right? Going 9-7-1 and getting your ass kicked in the first round of the playoffs?
Well, I think
it's a admirable thing, but it's not ideal for their franchise, right?
I think you can stomach it when these are your down years, right? As long as that is your outlier down year, you kind of are proud of the fact that, our shitty year, we made the playoffs. I know no one thought we should have, and we probably shouldn't have, but we did.
So to me,
and I think he fits in with them from a culture standpoint, right?
Well, that to me is like the things that he's going to value, right? The leadership, the guy, the way the 49ers players have talked to him. I think Ron Rivera and Mike Tomlin specifically, Hackett is just like talking about Justin Timberlake and different stuff. I don't truly know his football philosophical beliefs. I do know Mike Tomlin and Ron Rivera, probably like all the same fucking players and the type guys who they like Luke Kuechly, TJ Watt. Just go down the list of type players that they would want on their squad. Jimmy fits a lot of that. And I think with coaches, and I think you see it with McVay and Shanahan, who have this like soft spot like Belichick for these like little white slot receivers because they like see themselves in the guy. I think those two guys value toughness at such a high level that Jimmy's toughness factor is really high. And it's pretty clear, like universally, it's just respected now that you can overcome a couple of the picks for having to feel like I got a guy that I can go to war with. Now, like you said,
the problem is his toughness is on display so much.
Yeah, because he's always injured. And, I mean, how many injuries do you have this year? Calf, shoulder, hand? I mean, several.
Yep.
Coming off a season where he missed 6 games and injured. Like his injury, you would argue that when you meet to discuss trades, Tomlin, Colbert, whoever the next GM is, like if the next GM you get hired, you just like kind of just follow Colbert around. Do you got to ask him? Does he got to ask you? How does that work? A little weird.
I mean, it feels like
they're
promotion
interviewing a lot of
from
outside candidates.
That's weird, right?
Very bizarre. But I do wonder, if you can get by the injuries and just be like, well, to me, if you get him for, if you're like a 3rd round pick, what's a 3rd round pick to get this guy in our building? I think what the Niners are going to ask for is just, there's going to be some debate coming back and forth from the Niners phones and some of these teams.
Well, it's going to be one of those like
black and white thing.
Hey, anybody interested in a quarterback that's been to 2 NFC championship games in 3 years? 1 Super Bowl? No, nobody. It's the scene from Major League where the manager's mad because he needs an outfielder. He's like, "I got you an outfielder from the Giants." It's like Jackson, not those Giants. And it's is it Yomori? Is that how you say Giants? And then it cuts to the scene of the guy catching the ball barehanded in the outfield.
Well, see, to me, like if Russell Wilson, for example, if John Schneider, if Russell goes, listen, I refuse to tweet this out or say this publicly because I'm obsessed with people liking me. I want a trade. And I want to go to 2 places, the Eagles or the Giants. I'm cool with going to either. John gets on the phone, calls Howie, calls this new cat, and goes, Russell's interested in coming to you. Their reactions are like, all the picks. He's like, what do you mean? He's like, fucking have them all, right? What do you need? We'll pay 180 cents on the dollar. Now, whether the big picture that would turn out all right, they would get an astronomical haul from either one of the teams. Like the Seattle would have all the leverage, right? And those teams,
and it wouldn't be hard to create the leverage, right? When you told another team someone's offering us 3-1, they'd believe you.
And it's not hard to like, are you really getting bent over if you feel you're getting Russell Wilson to have a star quarterback and going to win the division? You wouldn't even care. Like, what I overpaid. Well, not really if we win 12 games next year and I'm the guy that brought Russell Wilson to the franchise, either one of those GMs. It would change, especially for Howie, right? Howie's, you forwarded me, is getting a lot of credit for fleecing the Colts. And that's what it is. He fleeced.
Somebody made a hype video for their GM. I mean, that's Howie Roseman got a hype video.
They made the playoffs. Like they just have a lot of positive momentum going right now.
Yep. Well, he got a little juice too because he stepped out on a limb for his head coach and he won games with a guy no one else was going to hire.
And a quarterback that can't really throw. Somehow they figured out a way to win 9 games with a quarterback that can't throw. Jimmy can throw, just not really deep. You see, I think someone said that Brandon Ayuk tweeted today, like, I'm ready to go deep or something.
I didn't see that. I did see this. That's funny. This on the stream, is Jimmy an upgrade over Ben? Yes, I believe that he is.
The Ben that we've seen the last 2 years.
Yeah, the guy that just played, not Hall of Fame Ben.
Yeah, Ben was bad. Ben was bad. We just need to get clarity. To me, if there's clarity of like, well, Rodgers, he wants to go to Denver, but he'd be open to some other spots. That would change it a little bit, right? Is he cool going east too? If it's just like, he just wants to move to Denver, that's where he wants to go, he's dead set on it. To me, that's pretty black and white. It's just those 2 teams, everyone else is kind of irrelevant.
Yeah.
And even the deal, it's kind of a unique deal if he's forcing their hand to go there. The Russell thing, as of we're sitting here right now, do you expect Russell Wilson to get traded?
I don't know, man. I'm a little 50-50 here. It's been a little quiet, which doesn't, I don't think, mean anything. It feels like he and Aaron are using the same tactic, which is the opposite of their previous tactic, which was kind of blow it up and get yourself out of there. I think it makes sense for them to trade him, in part because he wasn't that great last year. So I'd probably go 51-49. But yeah, I'd lean that Russell is traded. How about you?
I think it's very, very difficult to be the guy because you got a lot of credit. You were the guy that brought him. You were the guy. John Schneider gets all the credit for going to Pete and Pete going, I cannot draft a short little quarterback. And he jumped on the table and he pounded that thing until he convinced his guy to draft him. And he's the best player in the history of the franchise that led him to a Super Bowl championship. But I think if you can somehow take the emotion out of it, and it's hard, I think, as a GM when you've drafted the player and he's brought you so much success and you've become, up until this year, they were kind of rock stars in that town for a decade, right? Winning games and becoming like kind of what the Rams have been these last 5 years, but they did it for 9 with multiple iterations of players. Can you take a deep breath and, like you said, can we sell high? We bought low. We had an incredible fucking run. Could we get 4 first-round picks and a 2? How? Because if it does happen again next year, he's another year closer to having to get a huge extension, and he's trending the wrong way. To me, you're having legitimate conversation with Pete and, I think you're just your crew and being like, should we sell high right now? Is that the right move, big picture? And it might not be. Because there is a chance he could rattle off 3 or 4 more seasons at an elite level.
Well, I think he might come back looking. I think his fitness was part of the problem last year, but part of it is their evaluation internally of, is this guy done or is he about to bounce back? It's crazy right now to say he's done. I don't think he's done, but you can't deny that he wasn't very good as the year wore on. Now, maybe that was the team. Well,
I think it would be easier to do the sell high move if you had someone that you could plug and play.
I know.
And to me, when you don't have a guy to plug and play, it's just very easy. Content's the wrong word, but just stay with the thing you got.
Well, if you don't have a quarterback, you're just like, it's one thing to trade a guy. Like, to me, the Eagles were perfect. They didn't have the quarterback of the future, but they had somebody that they were right was good enough that they could trade Wentz away and take the gamble that they sold at the right time. And they did sell at the right time. But if they won 3 games last year, it wouldn't feel quite the same. Part of the reason it feels so good is because they made the playoffs after trading him away. Can you pull that off if you're the Seahawks? Doesn't feel like you can.
Well, let's say this. The 49ers last year had done what they did, and they just rolled back with Jimmy and had drafted Micah Parsons. Think about it. They just drafted Micah Parsons.
Yeah.
And they have oh my God, they got Micah Parsons and Nick Bosa to go Trentwood. We would just be talking I wouldn't extend Jimmy, but just roll it back on his number, make him play it out. Maybe he could earn, Jimmy Garoppolo would be the quarterback again, right?
Right. Unless they somehow, yeah.
Unless they could trade for another play. But I'm just saying, at this point in time, we would just roll Jimmy back, more than likely. Unless you could land, one of the top guys. You would try to get Aaron, they would probably hang up on you. But you get my point, right?
Mm-hmm.
The reason they're doing this is because they have this guy that is an unknown. Is a complete unknown. Not complete because he played a couple games, but that was not good enough. They would not have been able to make the playoffs with that. And maybe he improved, and that's the one thing you don't know, over 8-9 games.
If he had played a lot, yeah.
But it's hard. You just never know until he does it. So that makes coaches very nervous.
Right. I totally buy that there are Niners players going, we are about to downgrade a quarterback based on what we've seen. But the problem is we haven't really seen a lot. And part of what should make Trey...
They've seen a lot, though.
They've seen a lot in practice, but part of what, in theory, should make Trey unique is that he does things that just play in games better than they play in practice, right? That he can make up for not knowing the offense as well as Jimmy Garoppolo knows it by some of the throws he can make and some of the plays he can make with his legs outside of the pocket. And that's what you hope. You hope that somebody, this is the vision of it all. The Bills get credit for Josh Allen because they had the vision before everybody else saw it. Everyone else can see it once everybody can see it. Can you see it before everybody can see it?
We've talked a lot about the Montana thing. Part of the reason the Niners do get credit, whether they made the right move or not, they still went to Steve Young. They didn't go to fucking some rando that sucked. They had a guy.
And they can still argue it till this day that they made the right decision. I think you can still argue it. I understand why they did what they did.
The irony of Rodgers is once upon a time, there was a visionary named Ted Thompson that they went all in on him and said, see ya, Brett.
Yeah.
Adios.
Andre on the stream says, it's a downgrade until we get Brady. Goat emoji.
Tom retweeted it on Instagram, and clearly they're coming out with a man in the arena. The final episode is his retirement and his dad talking, and it's Tom Senior. It sounds like an older version of Tom Junior. Like they sound vocally very similar,
like Jack and Chris Collinsworth.
I actually think it's closer.
Oh, really? Okay, I haven't watched the video. I gotta go watch the video.
I just wonder, do you think he'd have his dad do stuff if he was even contemplating coming back? Do you think he would make a man in the arena if he wasn't dead set on just being, at least this season? Because you text me yesterday, it's like Rob Gronkowski saying you never know Tom come back in a couple years, like he's 36 years old. It's like, Rob, he's 40. He'd be like 48.
Weddle did it.